Hey, GW coming to you live with Midsommar review. Now, for those of you guys who don't know anything about Midsommar, it is the second picture by Ari Aster. Ari Aster is the one who did Hereditary, starring Toni Collette, which was a supernatural deal. You really didn't know where that film was going, but it was a pretty interesting hit. A lot of people picked it up, a lot of people liked it, because the director had no bones about killing off a main character halfway through the film, and it became a semi-successful tale of demons and supernatural activity. Well, anyway, he burst back on the scene with Midsommar. Now, a couple things about this movie. This movie, when I read the reviews about it, it was considered a blatant mind screw. Basically, you don't know what's going on. I didn't hear about the movie, but it generated a lot of buzz. Well, just got done with this bad boy. For 2.5 hours, I sat here and I watched this thing, and I gotta tell you, man, it takes a lot of viewings to really figure out what's going on. Aster has a knack in this film of making daylight frightening. A lot of this stuff that you're going to see in this movie is pulled directly from the movie The Wicker Man, the Nicolas Cage vehicle, and the early 80s or early 70s, deal with a weird community, a lot of weird practices going on. You really don't know the motives behind it until the very end. Anyway, to keep you up to speed on this movie, this girl, Danny, she loses her parents and her sister. They all commit suicide at the beginning of the movie. And her boyfriend is friends with a guy from Sweden. Next thing you know, he says, hey, let's go over to Sweden. Her boyfriend and his friends are doing a thesis on small little foreign communities. So what do? They fly over there and they join in the festivities, not knowing that there's an underlying sort of reason that they're there. And that's not revealed till the third act of the film. But I think in horror, you guys pretty much know where that's going to go. As the activities start, you notice the creepiness of it. It doesn't have the usual friendly get-together of a festival, but there's always something dark lying underneath the edge. In the third act, the end of the second act, there is a very hypnotic dance sequence. And all these are like traditions that this community goes through. The one thing I liked about this is there's enough gore in it, but when it happens, it's very graphic. And I'm talking very graphic. More graphic than I would say 3 from Hell, and that's pretty amazing. Considered what that movie was like. This one, the gore is up close and personal, and it's not throughout the whole film. So it's used, and it really hits a note. You really notice a switch in the movie. Everything could be going calm, nice and cool, and you're trying to figure out what happens, and then bam, something very shocking happens, very graphic, very violent, and you're like, whoa, baby. There is a tradition in this movie, in this community, about a May Queen. That plays a big part in this film. And I gotta tell you, too, I was shocked by the amount of female nudity in this thing. There's not a lot of it till the third act. And that's when you realize things for these people have gone completely to hell. These tourists. Also, you'll notice, and I'm not going to give away the major plot lines of this thing, because for me, I'm still trying to figure out what's going on, and I watched this thing less than 20 minutes ago. I got finished with it. Basically, toward the second act of the film, I told you in the beginning, these kids are writing a thesis about this small community. Well, they were actually given a permission to do that in the film. And of course, they have guidelines they got to follow. Well, they start not listening to the guidelines, doing what they feel they need to do, and then all of a sudden, one by one, they are their vacation falls apart. The other thing interesting is that, when you go to another country, you know, you have to follow their traditions. Anybody that, say, like in this film, urinates on a tree that is supposed to be a marker for ancestors is going to get it. Just like in Bermuda. I know that Bermuda has nothing to do with this film, but my brother-in-law decided to rent a scooter one year and not park it where it was supposed to be, raising the ire of the Bermuda State Police. There's just certain things in other countries you don't do. We can go way back too. And I don't know why I'm mentioning this, but Michael Fay. You don't go to Singapore and spray paint in English. You know what I mean? You just don't do it. You have to follow their guidelines or else you're going to get in trouble. That's what happens basically in this film here. Also, you'll notice Danny and her boyfriend are not exactly chummy. There's a thing that happens in this community where the women take an interest to the men. They could be men from the community, they could be men from outsiders. Something happens between Danny's boyfriend and another woman that really sets Danny off, and her underlying motive is just amazing when it comes to the third act. Having said that, this film is very visually disturbing. I mean, some of the outdoor sets are elaborate. They all are. But it's kind of like you looking over at your neighbor's house. He might have an expensive mansion, but once you kind of think something's going on behind those doors, it creates a whole new eeriness and tension. This is also based a lot on fairy tales. You'll notice, like, there's a wagon in here from Cinderella, a coach rather. There is, things that other people may pick out. But I gotta tell you, the girl that played Danny, trying to see if her name's in here, Florence Pugh, she is amazing. Because given her fragile state of her character coming into this film and then what happens during it is just amazing. And this thing, like I said, it's not for everybody because you have to watch this thing a lot. But if you're a fan of, like I just said, The Wicker Man or any sort of bizarre, 70s sort of, we don't know what the hell's going on until we see it. And this is a one-of-a-kind film because you really do not know where this film will end up. The other thing that's interesting about this film is the sound. There's a couple sequences in the movie where the sound goes quiet, letting you absorb the shock of what just happened. That's not used widely in many films. I dug it. And I thought it was great. I just wonder where Astor's going to go next. But this film is probably going to be one of those video store hit and miss. But if you can understand, this film, and this film does take multiple viewings to sort of get what's going on. You might have to go on YouTube and figure out what's going on, but it does stay with you. Like, I can just right now see the whole movie in my head, and I just got done, like I said, 25 minutes ago with it. I could say a lot about this film. I could go into all kinds of things, but the best way for anyone to experience this is to watch it and watch it multiple times. The only lagging thing about this film, I would say, would be the running time. And a lot of people are probably going to gripe about the end because it opened. Means it didn't have a definite ending. It just kind of stopped. You know what other movie stopped, guys? Was 120 Days of Sodom, which I'm not even going to go into that picture. Research that one on the internet. That was a very, very disturbing, I need a shower after I'm done with this type movie. But this was really amazing. And the one thing that was interesting, too, about this is the tone of the film. You never quite feel relaxed except for the first act. Whenever they get to Sweden, your guard is up. because you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know how these people are. And then, like I said, some of the festivities, if not disturbing, sort of eerie in nature, you know, it makes you just feel uneasy about what's going on. And that's why this film works. The also, like I told you just a second ago, the gore effects are amazing. They're not used, frequently, but when they are, it is amazing. And there's a whole underlying sort of tone to this community in Sweden. So I would say, I mean, it's an awesome film because it really does make you feel uneasy the entire time. Like I said, I wish the running times were shorter, and I give credit to everybody in this movie, even the cast that played the community. They were pretty awesome. There's a scene in the third act too where the main character, Danny's boyfriend, runs around the outside set pretty much naked. And I watched that and I'm thinking, you know what? Not everybody would do that. But he did. Also, the women, they got that whole scene with Josh and the other woman, making love is just disturbing on so many levels that it actually works. So if you're looking for something, that'll get under your skin and you'll probably talk about for a couple months on end, definitely check out Midsommar. I was very, very surprised at this. I was going to go into it thinking it was going to be dumb and predictable, and it was not. It was anything but. So definitely give it a whirl. Like I said, it's not for everybody, and it also is put out by Lionsgate, who seem to have the horror market cornered. So Lionsgate may be your new channel for horror. But like I said, the thing that makes this film work is it is a slow burn. The gore is used and it's impactful. It also creates an uneasy feeling. And it's one of those movies you probably won't forget about anytime soon. I dug it. And I'm going to have to watch it 2 or 3 times to sort of see if I can pick out any hidden things that I may have missed the first time. But even a daylight shot of people dancing, Astor makes very, very nervous and nerve-wrenching and hypnotic and hallucinatory, which it takes talent. So I give Hereditary about an 8 out of 10. Definitely check it out, like I said. Let me know what you guys think. And if you watch it, enjoy the show. GW, out.